Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is nutrition. We're going to be discussing maintaining a positive nitrogen balance. So this was requested by a listener, and I didn't get the opportunity to kind of expand on what exactly they wanted to know. So I'm going to kind of do this one, and I do believe there's helpful information in here, and then hopefully I'll get the response from them, and hopefully this is what they wanted to know. So maintaining a positive nitrogen balance is kind of like fancy language for what I would typically want to use in our podcasts. And the reason why is I like to keep our podcasts kind of very, very practical. Like you listen, you learn something, and you know how to apply it and kind of do it. We try not to make this stuff overly confusing. Now, for some people, they like all those kind of confusing details. So I do get requests every now and then where somebody wants to know kind of the nitty-gritty stuff. So in those times, I've typically actually just sent like information rather than making a podcast. So I've had that happen, I don't know, like a dozen or more so times. It's just sometimes the more nitty-gritty details just wouldn't lead to a very good podcast for the mass population. But I thought this one might be a neat example of how sometimes fancy language just muddles up very normal, easily understood things. So I don't intend on what I'm saying now to pick on this person. I'm happy they sent this question in, and I hope that we give you a great answer. So, but what I thought would be a cool example of just how language can be confusing, especially if you can't pronounce words correctly. But language can be confusing when the underlying issues are actually sometimes very simple. So, for example, maintaining a positive nitrogen balance. What that really means is, do I have enough protein in my diet to repair my muscle and build new muscle? Done. So that's pretty much what this person would be generally asking for. So if they have any kind of medical condition in regards to nitrogen balance, they're probably not emailing me for a podcast on it. They're probably talking to their doctor. So I don't think this is a medical issue. But just that wording of maintaining a positive nitrogen balance, what that means, what they're trying to say is, how do I have enough protein in my body, in my bloodstream at all times so I can maximally repair muscle and maximally build muscle? So that is basically what they're asking. So that we could just label this podcast as, how do I know if I have enough protein? Okay? So that would be just as simple. But like I said, I liked the idea of contrasting the more detailed language with the general. So how to maintain a positive nitrogen balance is just how do I know if I have enough protein. Okay? So this fancy language stuff can sometimes get us confused. However, sometimes it's actually necessary. Because sometimes in the world of nutrition, you have to know if what you're saying, like there is a general, but then there has to be a specific to it. So an example we have that I think is just absolutely ridiculous is you'll see articles where a glass of wine a day is good for the heart. Okay? Well, the authors who write those articles are assholes, and they just want to sell magazines. They want to get clicks on their website. So they're purposely putting up a title that's absolutely stupid. But people don't care if what they're doing is valuable to the world. They just want to make their money and get their clicks. So authors who write stuff like that, like I said, are assholes. And I'm a jerk sometimes. So maybe if anybody would actually be listening to this who wrote an article like that, they're like, hey man, it gets people interested. It gets people to read the article. Not really. Like people don't, like when they see that title, they're just like, oh, awesome. And then they drink their glass of wine at night. They didn't really read the article. So it's kind of like, it's almost like they would be arguing that you're making a title to get lazy people to read an article. Lazy people don't read articles regardless of the title. So lazy people who just want to be justified in their bullshit lazy behaviors, they just like the title, and then they just do their bullshit lazy behaviors anyhow. So I don't believe in the point of like advertising for lazy people. If they're lazy, they're lazy. Let's go after the people who actually are proactive and want to make a difference in their life. So let's let the lazy people be lazy, and when they're ready for help, they'll come ask. So now, not everybody's going to agree with what I just said there, and I understand that. But the problem with those things is like a glass of wine a day is good for the heart. Really what they're saying in the articles, if you read the article, is that wine due to it being made from grapes, has antioxidants. And antioxidants are good for the heart. But there are a million better ways to get antioxidants that don't have alcohol, that don't have sugar, that don't have emotional dependency, that don't have all these other kind of like not only physical issues, but mental and emotional issues. So a glass of wine a day is going to leave you chubby. Okay? You won't be as lean as what you'd really like to be. So then all of a sudden you're depressed about being overweight, and then you're going to have a glass of wine every night because now you're depressed. And then that depression of drinking a glass of wine every night makes sure that you're depressed every day because you'll never look any better. So it's just this vicious little cycle that these articles just reinforce, which I think is irresponsible. So I am probably overblowing this, but this is all I do all day, every day, and I've been a trainer for 17 years. And this is exactly what you see happen, is people have emotional coping mechanisms that cause their emotional problems. You see it all the time. And articles like that just reinforce that stuff. So that's why I don't like it. So that's my little soapbox about that. So what I was talking about was detail being necessary is, the general statement of a glass of wine is healthy for the heart. It's too general. You need to be more specific and say antioxidants are healthy for the heart. And antioxidants happen to be in wine, but there are better, healthier sources available. Done. So that's kind of what needs to be said. But that doesn't sell articles, doesn't people clicked on things, doesn't sensationalize it. But that's the truth. So I would like to make this podcast. I don't care if this ever becomes famous. I just think I would love to do it to where we don't do any of those stupid things. So I'd rather just tell you guys the truth on things, even if the truth is boring. Okay? So, gets back to, I'll get off my soapbox now, and we'll get back to this protein issue. So essentially what the question of the person was asking was, how do I maintain enough protein throughout the day to repair and build maximal muscle? Okay? The general answer, that's pretty easy, that we already kind of know, we've talked about it in 100 podcasts already, is meal timing and protein intake. Okay? So our meal timing podcast is number 249. So you can go listen to a whole 30-minute podcast about the importance of meal timing and the benefits of it. Then our protein podcast is number 33. How much protein do I need? Again, you can go listen to a whole 30-minute podcast about finding out how much protein you need. So in general, the quick little rundown of those is protein should be between 0.6 grams to 1 gram per pound of kind of lean body weight. And 0.6 is if you're not super duper active and maybe only work out once or twice a week. 0.8 would be kind of like people who work out like 3 or 4, and up to that 1 would be people who work out 5 or 6 days and they do very aggressive large workouts. So a lot of muscle damage. So that's generally what you're looking for. And when we say lean weight, is if I weigh 300 pounds, but I'm really a 240 pound person inside of a 300 pound body, I don't need to eat 300 grams of protein, I just need to eat 240. So likewise, if I'm 220, and say it's a guy, wanting to bulk up, and you're like, well, I'm 220 pounds, and it's like, yeah, but you got kind of like a little marshmallow top, like muffin top going on there, so you're probably not 220 of muscle, buddy. So you might be like 180 to 190, so that's around the protein that you'd want to have. So it's based off body weight, but based off kind of lean body weight. So you can think of this in general as what would I weigh if I was 10% body fat? So that kind of thing. So I weigh 280 right now. And sad to say, I'm not 10% body fat. That would be freaking awesome. But I am not. So if I'm 280, I don't really know what my body fat percentage is, but we'll say it's 20 just because it makes the math easy. And so 20% of my body weight would be kind of fat. Okay? So that would be 56 pounds. Oh, that's depressing. But I would have 56 pounds of fat on me. So do I need to eat 280 grams of protein every day? No, because I'm not really 280 pounds. I'm a, whatever the hell that math is, 224 pound person with 56 pounds of fat on me. So I should have picked somebody else. This is a depressing example. But yes, I'm a 224 pound person with 56 pounds of fat on me. So I would argue that you could even just eat 224 grams of protein. That'd probably be fine too. So it's really your lean weight that matters, because what we have our protein based on is to fix and repair muscle. So we want to know what you weigh with muscle, not what you weigh with muscle plus a whole bunch of fat on you. So fat doesn't require protein. So the more or less fat I have on me shouldn't really change my protein intake, right? So if I weigh, say I'm a 224-pound person, but I weigh 250 or 280 or 300 based on the fat I have on me, that fat shouldn't change my protein amount. I'm still that 224-pound person, okay? So, and then meal timing, the quick little summary of that is you want to eat more when you move more. Eat less when you move less. So if I'm at times where I'm not very active, I still want to have calories coming in, but I don't want to have a bunch of them. At times when I'm super active, I want to go ahead and have like the higher calorie meals of my day. So that's kind of what meal timing is. And we do that throughout the day. You would eat about every 3 or 4 hours. Okay. Now, some people can't eat like every 3 hours. Their schedule only allows over 4 or 5. Whatever. Just do the most frequent that you can, but don't rely on bullshit excuses that are holding you back. So if you're like, oh, I don't have time for breakfast, bullshit. Get up 10 minutes earlier. Okay? Everyone has time for breakfast. You're choosing not to get up in time. Everyone can get up earlier. So when somebody says, I don't have time for lunch, so I work with people all the time, they get up in the morning, they have coffee and some fast meal, they work through the entire day, and then they try to eat food at like 4 or 5 o'clock at night. They say, I'm so tired and I'm really hungry and I just have cravings all night. Well, no shit, you didn't eat anything for like 8 hours. That's pretty damn dumb. So you got to get some food in you. So whatever you do for a living, you are not so damn important that you can't take 30 minutes in the middle of the day to eat food. Okay? Now, I have worked with thousands of people, so I can make an asshole statement like that and have it be true. Okay? So everybody can make time for lunch. You're just choosing not to. Okay, so this is apparently just me being grumpy at you guys for the whole podcast. So I'll try to be nice from now on. But that's the general idea of how do we maintain enough protein in our diet is, first of all, eat enough protein. So eat within that 0.6 to 1 gram per pound of lean body weight. And then meal timing. Spread it out throughout the day. Okay? Spread it out into meals that are about every 3 to 4 hours apart. Cool. Now, that's pretty simple, and we could just kind of end it there because that's essentially what most people need to focus on. But this person who sent the request likes some details. So let's go ahead and get into a little bit of detail stuff just for fun knowledge. Okay? So, what influences positive protein balance other than meal timing and protein intake? Pretty good question. So the first thing we look at is insufficient caloric intake. So what that means is even if I'm eating the right amount of protein in my diet, but I am severely under eating my fats and carbs to where my total caloric intake is severely underneath my maintenance level, then the protein that you are consuming will not be used for muscle repair and building. It'll be broken down and converted over for energy. So you'll actually end up using your protein for energy rather than muscle repair. So even if somebody were to eat the exact amount of protein they're supposed to have, and then they say, but I want to still get super duper lean, I'm going to eat no carbs and no fats. But since I have all my protein, I'm going to keep all of my muscle. And since I'm not eating any carbs and fats, I'm going to lose all the fat. Now that sounds wonderful, but I can tell you from personal experience that that does not work. So unfortunately, that's how I kind of started my journey. Is the first year when I was 15 and I wanted to lose weight, I just ate nothing. So I was anorexic, ate literally one meal a day. I would make sure that I tried to burn off as many calories that I thought that meal contained. So I was ending every day in a net loss of whatever my maintenance of calories would have been. So say my body needed 2,000 calories to survive, I wasn't even eating 2,000 calories. So I might have one meal a day that had 600 calories and I'd burn 600 right back off. So I would end the day at 0 because I had no idea that there was a such thing as maintenance calories. So that was ridiculously, severely undercaloried because I was ending with 0 net calories every day in terms of consumed. So then my body was just burning off everything, muscle and fat and whatever it could to try to survive. What ended up happening is it ate off more muscle than it ever did fat. And that's a natural response. We've talked about this in the past. That muscle is what's considered metabolically active. It kind of requires more effort from our body to stay alive. So if our body is not getting anywhere near the calories it needs to stay alive, it doesn't want to have things around that are requiring calories. So it'll go ahead and break down and tear off that muscle and says, get the hell out of me because I don't have anything to survive with. So I don't need you in here trying to use up my calories when I'm trying to make my organs work. So it just says, bye-bye muscle, and rips it off. So then I started reading more about nutrition and I learned, oh, damn, I might actually need some protein if I want to build muscle. So I actually did the exact experiment of eating no carbs and fats, or as minimal as possible, but eating 2 grams of protein a day. Well, guess what? That didn't fix shit. So I still didn't build any muscle, and I still didn't get super lean, because all I did was I gave my body, maybe an extra, let's see, it would be 200, 300, 1200. Somebody gave it about 1200 to 1400 calories at most out of just protein, but that was still severely under what my maintenance calories were. So it was like throwing a penny in a whale. It wasn't enough to make a difference. So I've actually lived that lifestyle, and I will tell you that that's absolutely true. Is that insufficient caloric intake, to where even if you're eating the right amount of protein, but you're not eating enough fats and carbs, it's still not optimal, and that will cause muscle loss and muscle wasting. Okay? The next thing we have is lack of non-essential proteins. So what this means is that sometimes with like low variety diets or people on plant-based diets, they'll sometimes be getting in a decent amount of protein, but they're not getting it from enough variety of sources. So there are actually types of protein. Okay, like amino acids are a thing that you would consider as like the building blocks of protein. So you put a bunch of amino acids together and you get what we call a protein molecule. Well, the amino acids that you would put together to make a protein, there's different ones. Okay, so if we think of Legos, there's like, a block that has 6 dots on it. There's a block that has 4. There might be a block that has 2. There's red ones, green ones, blue ones. So protein is made up kind of similarly. There's different types of amino acids that can add up, and when put together in certain kind of sequences and certain orders, it'll make different types of proteins. And that's kind of like we can use Legos to make an airplane, we can use Legos to make a car. So you just kind of put those building blocks together to make what you want. Well, if we don't have enough variety in our amino acids, our building blocks of protein, then we're gonna have an insufficient amount of protein in a net amount. So, like in the grand scheme of things, even though I have, like, say there's types A, B, C, I just want to keep this simple, and I have 1,000,000 A, I have 1,000,000 B, but I have 2 C. Well, shit. What if I need C to build some stuff with? So I can really only build 2 things if I only have 2 C's, even though I have 1,000,000 A's and 1,000,000 B's. So, without enough variety in our food, we sometimes will still have protein deficiency, even though it looks like we're eating the right amount of protein. The problem is we're not eating enough variety of the protein. Okay? One quick, easy way to kind of beat this is to consume 3 or more sources of protein per day. So, for example, so far today, I had a bagel sandwich which had ham and cheese on it. So ham is one source, cheese is another source. I've drank whole milk, which is a third source. I've had some cashews, which is a fourth source. So cashews do have protein. So that's what you want to kind of add up throughout the day. Is, do I have a couple different sources of protein coming into my diet? If you have 3 or more, generally you're going to be okay. Okay? Now that's a pretty, it's a generalized statement, but it's true enough that it's useful. Okay? Now, if you wanted to get specific, that's a whole different world, and I actually would tell you it's not necessary. But you can look up the amino acids profiles of different foods, and make sure that you're eating foods of, this profile and that profile and this profile. But as long as you get 3 or more sources of protein, you're probably doing fine. So, I can't tell you the last time I worked with a nutrition client that this was ever an issue. So I have helped vegans and vegetarians do bodybuilding competitions, to where bodybuilding competitions, and I'm kind of generalizing that, so we'll say aesthetic competitions. So they were doing bikini, bodybuilding, figure, fitness, blah, 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 blah. So physique, where in those type of diets, they are very restrictive in variety, but even within that restriction, we were still totally fine with our profile, okay? So it's not really a major concern. Just make sure you're getting 3 or more sources of protein per day. Then we have another concern that might influence or positive protein balance, is electrolytes being insufficient. So specifically like potassium depletion. So being dehydrated and low in electrolytes impairs kind of the muscle repair and building process, even if we have adequate protein. And the reason why is that enzymes and what it takes to use protein to build muscle is dependent on electrolytes. So it's kind of like if we want to build muscle, I do build muscle out of protein, but there are things that we use that protein with. So if you think for a sense, if I want to make a brick house, I have to have bricks, but I also have to have mortar, right? You have to have mortar to put the bricks together. So there's more to it than just bricks. So there's more to muscle than just protein. So we have to make sure we have enough electrolytes around and some other things that help us kind of change that protein over to what we want it to become, is new muscle. So electrolyte imbalances and electrolyte depletion, enzyme depletion, stuff like that, can cause issues. So the big thing with that, again, is just making sure you have a variety of foods in your diet. It's where you have vegetables, fruits, meats, dairy, blah, 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 blah. And that can also be addressed with like a multivitamin supplement. So you can just have variety in your foods and then take a daily multivitamin. And again, most people are totally fine. If you're a highly, highly active person in terms of endurance-based events, so where you're doing like running multiple miles a day, maybe doing multiple training sessions per day, doing a lot of stuff that makes you sweat. You have to make sure that you salt your foods. You have to make sure that you add electrolytes back in. So there is some specifics to that. So I have worked with endurance-based athletes where we had to make sure that they were salting their foods and getting a variety of food items and categories in. So they had to get a variety of fruits, a variety of vegetables. They had to salt their foods. We kind of just made sure that they were reinforcing their electrolyte kind of profile throughout the day. Okay, so that is something to pay attention to. The last two we'll kind of blitz through because they're very rare and they're not that significant for most everybody. So is corticosteroid administration. So if you're taking corticosteroids for health reasons, maximum muscle mass is not going to be your major concern. Okay, so corticosteroids can sometimes cause issues with muscle repair systems. But if you're taking those steroids, you're taking them for health purposes greater than the need for maximum muscle. So you just got to do the best you can. So still lift weights with heavy resistance that will stimulate muscle damage. Still eat a lot of protein in your diet. Still eat a variety of protein in your diet. Do good meal timing. Make sure your calories are sufficient. And you'll be able to build as much muscle as you can while taking the corticosteroids. But if you're taking them, they're probably something you need to keep taking. Okay? And then infections. So if we have temporary infections, you can have temporary issues with maximizing muscle mass. But again, if you have an infection, that's not your concern. And then if somebody has cardiac issues, so if you have insufficient cardiac ability, that can sometimes cause excessive protein degradation, like breakdown and stuff. But again, if you're having heart issues, maximum muscle is not your major concern. Okay, there's bigger fish to fry, as they say. So those are things that are involved, but they're not significant. Okay, so let's try to keep things to the most important for us. So next thing we have is, okay, if we're worried about a positive nitrogen balance or just a nitrogen balance in general, so protein balance, is what are the signs of having low protein? How do I know what happens if I don't think I have enough protein? First of all, that's ridiculously unlikely because diets as little as even 20 to 40 grams of protein can keep away major issues related to insufficient protein intake. Okay, and also carbohydrates specifically, but also calories from fats, they are what's called protein sparing. So like we said, if you have enough carbohydrates and fats in your diet, your body will use those for energy. And even if you're only consuming a small amount of protein, if it doesn't need the protein for the energy, then it's sitting around to do what it should do for muscle repair and building. So this is a lot of times why like vegans and vegetarians get away with a lower protein count because they're still eating a sufficient amount of calories through their carbs and fats. So they don't even, their protein doesn't get picked off for energy. So even though they're only having a smaller amount, it's still maximally available for muscle repair and growth. So since it is unlikely, how do we know, like unlikely for major short-term issues, how do we know if we're having any kind of like, maybe I'm deficient a little bit for a long time, like every day, and what if I'm just a small amount deficient, is that ever going to hurt me? Well, long-term symptoms would be like physical weakness beyond what you normally would have. So say you can normally press, 40-pound dumbbells, but now all of a sudden you're like, man, I can't tell what's happened. Like I can only press the 30s. And then all of a sudden a month or two later you're down to the 25s and you're like, I'm in the gym all the freaking time and I'm just getting weaker and weaker. Well, then that is something you maybe have to look at. We also have low repair of bruises, skin, hair, and nail health. So if you have a bruise that never seems to go away, there's tons of other reasons, but that could be one reason, is insufficient protein intake. If you have poor, scaly, kind of dry skin, that could be an issue. Dry, brittle hair, dry, brittle nails. That's another concern or another symptom as well. Even having like kind of a soft, pudgy body composition, more than what your activity would kind of really dictate. So you lift weights, you're active, but man, you just look kind of less than what you would really like to. And it doesn't seem to make sense. So I have had people have that symptom or have that effect, but actually for males, it's more often that it's low testosterone levels than it ever is a low protein balance. Okay, so signs of having low protein balance, there's some of the signs, but it's ridiculously unlikely, so don't worry about it too much. So especially if you're having your 0.6 to 1 gram per pound of body weight, you're doing meal timing fine, and your total calories are about where they need to be, you're never going to worry about that. Okay. Then what are the signs of having too much protein? So, oh no, what are my kidneys are going to explode. So, totally fine. Again, just eat within the window that you're supposed to be eating in. Eat the meal timing that you're supposed to be eating. Eat the calories you're supposed to be eating, and you'll never have to worry about this shit. So sometimes people worry about stuff that's absolutely stupid because you're doing the baseline stuff fine, so why the hell would you worry about it? Okay? If I'm driving in a car, why would I worry about crashing in a plane? It doesn't make any damn sense. Okay? But I'll tell you the details. So it's very, very, very unlikely that you'll have excess of protein to the point where it's a bad thing. To the point where your body can't break it down, just like pee it out. So I did a 10-month diet once where I ate 2.5 pounds of chicken every damn day for 10 months. Okay? So I was getting 400 grams of protein every day, and it didn't cause any problems for me. So they've even done studies to show that 400 grams of protein per day for 4 weeks on average sized individuals, so people who don't even have a high requirement for protein, that they were totally fine for 4 full weeks with 400 grams of protein every single day, and it only minorly started to show any stress whatsoever to their digestive systems and their kind of like nitrogen cleaning out systems, and it cleared up immediately once they went off the 400 grams. So I got away with it because I was 200 and some odd pounds and of decent muscle, and I trained every day. But even people who have no training, no protein requirement really, they got away with it fine too. Okay, so what are the symptoms? So what if you were dying from having too much protein? It's extreme thirst, lack of urine production. You feel really physically weak, and you're kind of mentally fogged, dizzy, and even would kind of black out and go unconscious. So you're probably fine. None of those things are happening to you, right? Okay. So what do we really want to worry about if we think of maintaining a positive protein balance to maximize our muscle is staying within our protein amount, okay? It is 0.6 to 1 gram per pound of lean body weight. We eat 3 or more sources of protein per day. We get a variety of food as much as we can, but we can also supplement with kind of multivitamins. And then pay attention to meal timing, having protein about every 3 to 4 hours throughout your day. Cool. So hopefully that was more than you ever need to know about a protein balance, and hopefully that answered what that person wanted to know. If it didn't, please email me and give me more details, and I'll kind of come back at this, okay? We'll do a round 2. But I thought that would be interesting to show people that you can make stuff really complicated in language and worrying about things that you don't need to worry about. But often things are very simple compared to just what you might think. So do the basics right, and you'll take care of the small things, okay? Get the big things right, and you'll take care of the small things.